Welcome, my friend, to Next Level Change Success. I'm Therese Perez, a change strategist and practitioner with over 20 years of experience designing and delivering impactful change programs across various industries. In this podcast, I share real-world practical strategies to help you create and deliver positive change experiences, whether you're a leader, practitioner, or someone looking to bring new ways of working to life. In today's fast-paced world, change is constant. Here we focus on how you can put people at the centre of your change strategy, because people with a sense of purpose are the most important link in driving performance. So if you're ready to create meaningful change and achieve all the success that comes with it, keep listening. Together, let's change the conversation and take it to the next level. Hello. Welcome to another episode of Next Level Change Success. My name is Therese Perez, and I'm the founder of myvirtualchangemanager.com. Before I begin, I'd like to acknowledge that I am recording on Tharawal country and pay my respects to the traditional owners and custodians on the land on which I am recording. And welcome. We're going to have a chat today about the beginning of the year. For some, I guess, in Australia, this is mid-financial year, but still the beginning of a calendar year has a bit of power to it. And I know during January, oftentimes there are people on leave, and it gives you a bit of time to reflect, maybe to replan, to re-engage with some areas if you've lost track of it, those areas towards the end of last year. So there's a couple of things I want to talk about from a change perspective, and these are universal really around the rhythms to consider for this year. And the reason why I want to talk about this in January is because it's a great time to reset, to reflect and reset if and when needed. So let's talk about the concept of planning or reflection. And these are all areas for you just to simply ponder upon about whether they're strong in your landscape, like whether it's something you're familiar with, something that you enjoy doing, something that you have incorporated into your rhythms throughout the years from a change perspective. If you're leading change, if you're managing change, or even if you're influencing for change, then these are the things to think about. These areas I'm going to cover off, the first one being planning. And whether you're having enough checkpoints throughout the year to plan and reflect. And the reason why I raise this is because oftentimes you can charge through the year, but never be pausing or allowing your team to pause and reflect on how they're performing, whether you're heading in the right direction or whether you feel like you're just getting buffeted by the different changes that might be happening in the organization, or more so on the macro as well. So if you don't schedule in now your reflection sessions, if you're not fully scheduled around your team rhythm and how you're going to plan together, how you're going to collaborate together, and even have those higher order discussions about potentially what type of change you want to see in the organization, what type of change experiences you want to create as you develop your and design and deliver your program of work, these are great times to do that, because structures and having those in play for you throughout this year and for your team gives a sense of stability, but it also creates the space to have higher order discussions. So when I talk about higher order, it means that you're not getting into tactical, should we do this, should we do that? You're taking the step back and the helicopter view and considering what is happening in this organization this year. What's the focus of the organization? Are we clear on that? Are we not? But what do we know and what is ambiguous? And part of always getting present around what do we know and what do we know not to be true helps you just create that sense of stability and say, well, if we know that, for example, we want to 10x our sales or our growth this year, that the managing director, that the CEO, whoever that may be, has set that target for us, and that as a result of our programs, we want to be even 10x more efficient, then efficiency is going to be key. Now, how can we, from a change perspective, keep that in mind and aim to support that goal through everything we do, and then breaking that down. So that is part of the conversation of moving from strategic into tactical. But don't just sit at tactical level, even if you're an operational person or even if you're a change manager working with a program manager. Part of it is to survey that bigger landscape and identify opportunities, identify and acknowledge what you do really well and what you want to do more of this year. And then also around what you want to achieve by the end of the year or at the end of the quarter. Really, in some ways, from a calendar year perspective, I like to have a consideration for the entire year and then break it down quarter by quarter around what do those checkpoints look like. One of the things to talk about and definitely confirm for you, because I have no doubt you experience this too, is that sometimes what you anticipate at the beginning of the year is not what happens at all. Sometimes there's left-hand turns that happen during the year, or just as you're getting momentum, sometimes you might feel like you get the rug pulled out from under your feet. However, just by really being able to take the time, you can have a bit of a roadmap or a blueprint that you can look back on and have those discussions about, wow, we thought this was what our year was going to be like, and instead look what it did end up being. Because you tend to forget. Sometimes you get to the end of the year and you forget even everything that you and your team have achieved. Sometimes the landscape can look totally different at the end of the year than at the beginning from what you can see. And I always talk about the concept that change is the one constant in organization. So you're never going to be able to predict everything that's going to happen in a calendar year. But just by simply having some documentation, some intention, and having those discussions and co-designing that with the people you work with, the teams you work with, you really can have that great discussion at the end of the year when things are quite significantly different, and be able to hopefully have a bit of non-emotional discussion around it, but never sit in ambiguity, I think is one of the biggest keys to when you're planning and reflecting. Get as much clarity as possible. And that can be a skill. I would say definitely observe yourself and whether you like to defer to the grey areas when you're having these discussions, or whether you intuitively go to the clarity points, like the what do we know. I have seen and do see behaviours where people like to dwell in the grey space so that they can almost elect to be powerless and elect to be a bit of a victim in, well, we don't know because no one's told us type of narrative. And what I would say is that that's the learned helplessness that many people can have over time, and it suits them, right? Because if they live in ambiguity and if they can almost confuse people about the direction, then they're not held to account around their own performance. They may be the people who would like to generate conflict. Maybe the time in the organization is coming to an end because as you want to create a performing team, a performing organization, that includes people being comfortable to defer to clarity and also being okay that things do change around them. But the default position, and one of the things I'm always doing, is saying, well, what do we know now? And what action can we take now based on what we know? And then who do we need to escalate some questions to gain clarity? But in the meantime, what can we do? What can we move forward? What is within our control? That concept of your locus of control and what's within your control, and always pulling your power back to that space, is really important as a performer, that you can say, well, I'm not in charge of the overall organization strategy. However, what we know now is the general direction, and we're going to take forward steps to support that general direction. And what can we do from day to day to affect that movement forward, to be able to progress for the organization? That's very, very important around that approach. It is a open mind who can do that, The addiction that some people have around needing everything to be spelt out shows an inflexibility and a difficulty that people through peak periods of change struggle if they need that clarity for them to be effective. And that's a different type of conversation you might be having with those individuals. If you're needing to move your organization or team through change at speed, means that you have to be comfortable in the grey. And I think that's really, really important. So thinking about the bigger picture, the other thing is to put your plans on a page, put your change programs on a page. And this could be the year, if your organization hasn't done this across different areas, that you can either coordinate that, or you could put what you've been doing on a page so that others have visibility and so that others can connect in with it or others can leverage from it. But visibility around your change project, your change program of work, any change initiatives, anything that you're needing to influence others on, and what communication is going to be doing around that. This is really critical, because as you go and articulate and explain what you're looking to achieve to others, that visibility, having it down on paper versus just a conversation, is always going to be more powerful, because people can leverage a document, they can play it back to their own teams, they can share it with others, and you can get more connection into your initiative than if you're simply having conversations around the traps. Talked about this with some people around definitely there might be those who prefer just to have conversations. It's a dangerous aspect. It's a dangerous game to play, I guess, and not one that I would ever think a high performer does, is simply have conversations. Many high performers always, all of them always put their plans down and share those plans, sign up to those plans and commit to those plans so that they can achieve the outcomes. Part of being able to collaborate is being able to communicate, and that is very important and fundamental for performers. So definitely visibility, and if you're in a enterprise project or program management office, obviously your enterprise roadmap and the constant discussion about BAU versus program. At a first instance, I wouldn't delineate that. I would just simply capture everything that you need to around what is happening in the organization. Then it flows into a stop-start, continue conversation, and seeing what you might want to stop, what you might want to start, obviously, and what you might want to continue. And then having the capacity discussion around how much change or how many programs can the organization work on or absorb based on the resourcing within that organization. You can't have any of those conversations if you don't have the visibility across the activities taking place. So visibility is really, really quite key. Then I would say around the learning approach is another discussion to have at this time of year, around the commitment to learning, the commitment to progress and not perfection, to be able to learn lessons fast and be able to improve the way in which you're delivering change, or the way in which you're delivering programs, or the way in which you're approaching influencing other areas to change. And with the learning approach, there is that degree of psychological safety that needs to be created and agreed to. And it's a term, I think, at the moment that not many people know how to create an environment of psychological safety. We will be talking about that in our Change Intelligence webinars, psychological safety, how to lead teams so that they can really embody progress and not perfection in a safe way. And this is really relevant for many industries. Any who want to achieve any sort of agility need to increase the psychological safety within organizations to achieve agility. But there's structures and processes in place that you can do that with. And those structures and processes are really key as well to support that journey to agility and to ensure that psychological safety is achieved as part of that. But the learning approach that you might have even as a change function, a change team, a project team, a specialist team, really committing to, we want to learn. And so how do we put in, obviously, the checkpoints throughout the year, but also how do we embrace as a team and as a group the support of each other to learn from each other, and also to learn externally from other organizations, other disciplines, to really develop each other, ourselves as individuals, but also as an organization. And that is also really key to plan in and factor time in for that to take place. And that is really key as well, to ensure that you can encourage development and you can encourage connection and leverage at really no cost to the organization, no real cost to the organization. And in fact, the benefit that the organization will get from individuals connecting across their different teams, or getting exposure to external ways of working or external practices in times where the planning phase of a program, where there tends to be a bit of downtime, when there might be hold-ups in strategic decisions, and so people are in a bit of a holding pattern. That is the time to then say, well, okay, well, let's see what we can do to uplift the way we're working. Let's do a retro or a review so that we can really reflect upon what is working, what isn't, how can we improve that. And then after each drop of change or each program that gets delivered or designed is a checkpoint in that program flow to once again reflect and learn. Scheduling those in now for the year based on your current program of work or your current change roadmap is going to be important, because as you're in the throes of doing, and as momentum picks up and people come back from break, it's going to get really busy. And as everyone gets really busy, these are the things that drop off first. And then you get to halfway through the year and think, oh, wow, we haven't run a reflection session on this. We didn't really pick up the lessons in relation to this. We didn't map the process that we went through when we did this type of change. That probably would have been helpful. And then you're kind of behind the eight ball all year. And you don't want to be that way. You want to ensure that you integrate it in as a habit through this year for your program and for the people who work with you, work for you. This is what makes the difference. This is what the difference is between a project team who might deliver standard, rinse and repeat approach versus a high-performing team who is really evolving, and that team over time individuals will move from that program willingly, happily, to be able to share and increase the performance of your whole enterprise function if you set it up that way. So these are the opportunities, really are endless, and the achievement, that sense of purpose, but also that sense of joy that people can get through performance, and then being able to share their experience and broaden their wings. And then also the growing of their own competencies and their own approach, individuating, for want of a better word, within that change practice or within that program practice, to be able to then go into the business and further help support capability development, those type of things. This is what happens around the retention of this talent, the retention of individuals, and then also the movement of where they can go in your organization, and to which they bring those core skill sets of project management, change management, being able to leverage and improve performance. They learn that in a program environment fast to be able to then teach that to others and other teams. So great opportunities. But coming back to today, we're in January 2025. It is really an opportunity now to have a planning session, talk about those rhythms, how you want to run with the change program this year, be able to identify the grey areas versus what's within your control, and schedule in the checkpoints, the reflection sessions, ensuring that that's part of your due process for this year. You will reap the benefits of the work that you put in right now into these type of structures and into these ways of working at the back end of the year. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. I hope it brought value to you, gave you a few ideas around areas that you might have had drop off throughout last year that you might want to put back into place this year. And I hope you have a wonderful day. Hi, it's Therese here again. I just wanted to mention that we have the Change Intelligence webinar series happening this year, and you don't want to miss out on any of the topics that we're going to cover. It's a live webinar series talking about change resilience, change frameworks, connected thinking, how you can change your mindset and the mindset of others, behavioural change and what that can offer. If you don't want to miss out, then come to myvirtualchangemajor.com. Just simply register and we'll let you know when the next webinars are happening so that you can come along. Spaces are limited, so be sure to jump across and register as soon as you can, and you'll see some of the topics that we're going to cover. I hope to see you there and to continue to work with you to create positive change experiences.